Alright, so bringing your ego into balance. Okay, before we watch this video, guys, if you haven't seen the Connecting with Your Higher Self video that talks about the three selves, I highly recommend it, just so you have an idea of what I'm talking about here when I mention a few terms like the ego anchor. So if you haven't done that, I would suggest you do that before this. But yeah, so let's move on then. Alright, so bringing your ego or bringing your ego into balance. So your ego basically is, like I said, it is the anchor or the character in the game. Okay, it's the human self of us, and your ego has a huge role into creating our reality, and a huge role in making this game feeling immersive. And it is also, like I said, it's part of the game. It's part of it all. So it's not bad. And a lot of people like to tend to point out the ego and saying the ego is completely bad. And it's not. It's got a huge important role, and it's just as good as everything else. And most people who say that the ego is bad are kind of just looking at it from an ego's perspective, because they're trying to protect themselves from what the ego can do if it is not, taken care of or listened to. So one of the things about the ego is, like I said, it plays as a role as an anchor into the game. And this is because it is the character. It is what makes this, it's the identity that we play, it's the elusive identity that we choose to have for ourselves that makes, like I said, the game fun. For the story, you choose what characters and what kind of, experiences you want this character to have, how, the quirks that the character has, its feelings, the way it makes decisions. It's all about that. And so that's what our ego is here for, is just to be a character and to serve us as, for having fun or creating a story. Now, one of the interesting things about the ego is the ego has feelings. And this is something that a lot of people tend to just blow away or just ignore, is its feelings. And it has a plethora of different feelings, tons of different feelings, not just joyful ones, but also ones that are, negative, that, like sadness and being upset and, feeling sick, or just all the feelings you can think of. Your ego has all of these feelings, so much so that they can actually be overwhelming sometimes. And what happens here is when the ego's feelings aren't listened to, then problems start to occur. And that brings me on to actually wanting to talk about society's suppression demand. And that's basically the idea that society has taught a lot of people to suppress their feelings because we don't like how we act when we have certain feelings. And so a lot of society is just like, okay, if you feel that way, then you need to suppress it. You just need to get over it and ignore it completely, because it's causing all these problems for us, and you're acting out of fear, you're acting all these things, which the intention behind that is really good. We're trying to stop all the fear and we're trying to stop all the negativity occurring in the world. But the problem that occurs with it is a lot of people aren't letting go of it. They're just tossing it aside and holding on to it because they are so scared of it. Society actually teaches you that it's a bad thing to have these negative feelings, and because of that, we hold on to it because we're scared if we let go of it, it'll come to us again, and we'll have to go through them again, and we'll be bad and judged bad, and then we'll be all alone. But the truth is that we need to actually sit there and feel these feelings and to get them processed, because when we don't feel them and we hold on to them, well, then they can just start causing havoc for us throughout our lives, because these feelings are what create our actions and what create the connection parts, which is what creates our reality. So holding on to any negative feelings or suppressing your feelings and not, acknowledging and validating them, what can happen is you can start creating things in your reality, or negative actions, and everything starts to reflect all the negativity you're holding on to, all the negativity that you have suppressed. And so the idea of suppression may have been a good one to protect us from negativity, but it's actually doing us a harmful thing. Instead of suppressing, we should be looking at the thing and saying, hey, let's work through this, let's see what's going on here, let's feel the feeling, let's validate it, and now let's choose something different. Basically, really, the effects of suppression really are, like I said, poisonous in a way. Just because they create your feelings, and your feelings create your actions, which create your reality. Now, so one of the things, too, is the ego likes to listen to data. So what this means is it basically bases everything, or how it's feeling, kind of like, or like if it feels safe, it basically bases everything, if it feels safe, off of the past experiences that it's had or off of the experiences that other people have had. So it'll listen to like, oh, this guy says this is what happens when this happens. And so it'll start to feel that and it'll start to process that and it'll start to believe it. And what happens is though, when it does this, the ego can fall victim to reality and it can start allowing reality to dictate how it feels because it only listens to data. It only listens basically to reality instead of it doesn't have something else to go by. And so that's the importance of connecting with your higher self is so you can give your ego something else to go by so your ego can start to believe and listen to that data instead of listening to the data and reality. And because of this, it starts to actually play the blame game, which is it'll start to blame the external world for its problems and its pain and its feelings and all of that, which again doesn't get us anywhere as it locks on and holds on to these feelings because it can't control its external world and the things outside of itself. So it can't control the circumstances, and so then we just get into a negative cycle of just creating more problems and more pain. You see, the ego listens to data and reality because that's what it's built to do. It's supposed to really do that. And that's because this is what makes the game immersive. You have one experience that leads on to another experience, that leads on to another experience, that connects to another experience. That's kind of like, it's like connecting chapters. You're filling in the missing puzzle pieces that creates the chapter of the story, that creates the chapter of the book, or that creates the story experience by basically piecing each experience together and, saying, oh, this happens because of this, and this happens because of that, and this is what caused this, and this is what caused that. This is what the ego is built to do. It's built to basically base everything off of its experience and nothing else. But this is what actually can get you out of balance from living from a higher perspective in life and creating the reality you wish. If you keep it this way, it's fine. You can still enjoy your life. But some people get trapped into complete victim realities because they don't have a balance between their higher self's data that it can create or the higher self's visions and ideas for what it would like to experience and then the visions and ideas that it's been creating in its reality. So if you can get yourself into balance with your higher self and start getting a vision from your higher self and start creating that in your reality, your ego will start to base its life off of the experiences that the higher self created from the visions that it had, and then you'll get yourself into more of a healthier life and a healthier experience, an actually more fun and more joyful experience, and your ego will be able to work a whole lot easier, and you'll be able to let it do its job because it'll be basing all of its evidence off of great experiences in a great reality instead of one that is more fearful and one that is more negative. And so one of the things that the ego really needs is it needs to be heard. Like I said before when we were talking about the suppression, it needs to start feeling as if it is a good thing. The ego will fall victim to existing as one of the main roles of the ego is to feel, and it actually feels wrong for feeling. So, and when society demands you suppress, it starts to make you feel bad for having negative feelings because society is saying you are bad and you need to get rid of these feelings. And so that's what will happen is the ego will continue and actually make it worse because it will become even more of a victim to reality because now it actually feels bad for existing. And so what it really needs is it needs an ear. It needs to be heard. It needs to be valued. It needs to be validated, appreciated, and loved. And it's kind of the good example I can give you is the ego is like a child. It just needs to be heard. It just needs to be given love because it only has certain functions. It's not like capable of being super responsible because of what its role is. Its role is just to feel, it's to be a character, it's to be here and to experience. And in a sense, it's kind of like a mechanism more than it is an actual like being. In a sense, it's just a part that makes things a whole and makes things work. And so the idea is to really listen to the ego and listen to its feelings and, love it. Give it your love and hear it for what it has to say, process it, because it is completely, it's completely rational to feel the way it does because it's basing itself off of its experiences. And so if you can say it's okay, I understand, this is where we were basing it off of, this is all we've been able to see, and then you can validate it and say it's okay, then it can let go of holding on to the negativity and can make room for the new positive experiences and the new positive feelings and the new positive beliefs that you'd like to make way for into your life. And so that's the importance of really, like I said, just listening to your ego and seeing it as a child because that can make it easier for us to actually love it, as most of us, like I said, already hate ourselves or hate our egos because we've been taught, its feelings are bad. And so if you can remember that it's just like a child and it's only acting as it's supposed to act because it's only gotten a certain amount of information. Children don't really have every bit of information, don't understand everything. They don't have as much wisdom or as much experience as someone who's, has been grown up and has had more experiences in their life. And so it's only acting based upon what it's experienced.